When a NASA scientist built his own doom buggy, a $1 trillion industry might have murdered him. This is the true story of the water-powered car conspiracy. There was a claim from Elon Musk that he had a working prototype, 100 miles on 1 gallon of water. Yeah, that's just gonna make an insane amount of money. Hydrogen burns had it shut down by the government. The sauce is lost, it's gone. So let's get into it. Stanley Meyer built a water-powered car, or that's what he at least claimed to do, and it really wasn't a car. Technically, it was a dune buggy, but it was a water-powered car. Basically, his invention was pretty simple. It had a water fuel cell, as he liked to call it. It used electrolysis or electrolysis to divide water between hydrogen and oxygen. As we know, water is H2O, and then it would burn off the hydrogen fuel, and that would be the propellant for the engine, much like a regular car uses and burns gas. Despite a lot of skepticism about his car and if it actually even worked, he was actually able to get multiple patents for the car, and he even proved that the viability to the patent board. Apparently, he developed the engine over about 20 years, during which time he was also working for NASA on the Gemini space program. So this guy wasn't any run-of-the-mill kind of quackpot guy in his garage or something. This was a true blue American scientist who had an idea and got his ideas patented and got them working according to him. What do you want? I'm trying to record. Well, water electrolysis wasn't a new invention per se. The ability to put it in such a small scale and be efficient enough to run the car, and then the car, using an alternator, generate enough electricity to keep the electrolysis going to continue to divide the hydrogen and oxygen to continue to run the car as propellant, according to some, is impossible. It just doesn't work. But according to him, his invention did do that and was able to work like a regular car engine. It was in 1995 when he unveiled his water-powered dune buggy, where he had taken his patented engine, actually put it into a vehicle, and the vehicle was driving. According to him, he drove about 100 miles on 1 gallon of water, and the car functioned the entire time. If this is true, this would make it one of the most fuel-efficient vehicles ever made by units of fuel. Some of the most fuel-efficient cars today get 50 to 60 miles per gallon on gasoline, and his car was getting 100 miles a gallon running on water, apparently. And he was saying that it generated enough energy and fuel to keep the electrolysis going, to keep water converting into hydrogen, and keep the engine running. It was after showing off this water-powered dune buggy that he started getting lots of investors and attention, both positive and negative. A lot of scientists were saying, hey, this seems bunk, there's no way this is feasible or that it works. But there's also a lot of people very excited about the prospects of a water-powered car and what that could mean. He did garner several investors, many of whom were looking at this as, if it does work and we can get this in production, we will become billionaires because we will replace the gas-powered car with the water-powered car. Yeah, that's just going to make an insane amounts of money. But you can already kind of see where the supposed conspiracy villain is coming from, and that would be the oil industry. We will get to that when we get to his death. But before we get to his death, let's talk about the lawsuit and the fraud claims and the investors. A lot of the investors were very attracted to it, not only because it could potentially, uproot the gasoline industry, but also because it would be a very clean way to power a car. It wouldn't be harmful to the environment like gasoline powered cars are, because the only thing that would be coming out of the tailpipe would be hydrogen and oxygen, pretty much. Hydrogen burns very clean, and it wouldn't be throwing all this waste into the atmosphere like gasoline does. But as his car got more and more popular for this, some of his investors started to be like, we don't think this is real, because as a year passed, nothing was really happening, nothing was really moving forward. He hadn't proved all of his claims to anybody yet, so they decided to sue him a year later in 1996. The gist of the lawsuit was that they were claiming that what he stated about his vehicle was false, that he was using technology that was misrepresented, potentially even stolen and passing off as his own. And here's where things start to kind of look bad for Stanley. So his car was due to be examined by an expert witness named Michael Lafton, professor of electrical engineering at Queen Mary University of London and the Fellowship of the Royal Academy of Engineering. But every time that Professor Lafton would come to look at the car, there would be what he called a lame excuse, I quote, on the days of examination, and the test would never happen. So this expert, who would have truly understood everything about it, never did get to examine the car. But the water fuel cell was later examined by 3 other expert witnesses who I couldn't find the names of, but they said that there was nothing revolutionary about it. It was using conventional electrolysis, and it didn't work the way he said it did, and that his claims were fantastical, and the court found him guilty, and they charged him with gross and egregious fraud. In the end, he had to pay the investors who sued him $25,000 back, which I believe was their investment at the time. Remember, this is the 90s, so that's not an insane amount of money, but $25,000 would have been a lot bigger of investment in the 90s 30 years ago compared to today. I would like to note that if you're curious on whether the patents are legit or not and his invention is legit or not, that many of the patents have now expired, and you can find them on the Google patent catalog, and you can take a look for yourselves if you're really into that sort of nerdy thing. They're a bit beyond my scope of understanding of that level of science, but you can glean the gist of how he was saying that they work. It was losing this lawsuit where things started to go downhill from Stanley, which previously he was just a meteoric rise both in the news and the science community. That's where things started kind of taking a downfall for him. And that's when we are going to get to his death and where the conspiracy kind of starts. It is reported that he died right after having a toast with multimillionaire investors. And for that, let's toast to the big guy himself. It's a pepspiracy. That was a really bad one. So March 21st, 1998, Stanley was having lunch at a Cracker Barrel with his brother and 2 potential Belgian investors who apparently he had been good friends with for some time and were very interested in what he was doing. Allegedly, at the beginning of the meal, the 4 of them toasted their glasses for the commitment that the investors were offering, but after taking a drink of his cranberry juice, he allegedly stood up, grabbed his throat, ran outside, and fell to his knees and began to vomit. His brother ran out after him, upon which he looked to his brother and said, "They've poisoned me," or "They poisoned me," and he fell to the ground and died. I said it both ways because I've kind of seen reports that he said both of those things to his brother. Now, an investigation was held that ran for about 3 months, and the Grove City Police Force, with the aid of the Franklin County coroner, thoroughly investigated everything they could, but they did not find poison in his system. According to them, Stanley died of a cerebral aneurysm. They also noted that he had a history of very high blood pressure, and his body was not in the best of condition health-wise when he passed away. However, despite the pretty clear cause of death presented by the coroner, Stanley's brother insisted that he was murdered, and to this day still claims that he was murdered. And he had several reasons why he thought this was the case. Oh, we're gonna get the stupid, you can't touch the desk attitude. Get off the desk. Not only was Stanley a threat to a literal trillion-dollar industry and multiple companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars, but also he had resisted multiple buyout offers for his patents and his inventions and his dune buggy, some of which were reportedly worth up to $250 million. His brother had said that Stanley had turned all of those down, refusing to take them and insisting that he needed to see his invention realized, knowing that any company that bought it would most likely just kill it and bury it and never let it see the light of day. And ultimately, Stanley's death did that very thing to his own invention. While a lot of pressure and blame was put on the 2 investors he was meeting with at the time, there is a statement from one of the 2 Belgian investors, whose name is Philippe van der Mortel, I believe is how you say it. And according to him, he was always puzzled by the accusations against him. He had been supporting Myers for years, apparently even financially a bit. He considered him a very close friend and was really excited about the idea of investing into the water-powered car, knowing that if he could bring it to industry, he would become even more wealthy than he already was, potentially one of the richest men in the world. And according to him, he was just genuinely confused why anyone who actually knew the two of them would come to that conclusion, because he really actually cared about Stanley Meyer and his goals and dreams. Other parts of this conspiracy that we can get into, some people believe that Stanley had only patented part of his engine and not the entire thing, and that's why when you look at the patents, it doesn't seem like it totally works, but he had some secret sauce per se that he didn't put into the patents but did put into his dune buggy. Therefore his dune buggy functioned, but his secret way of making it all work just right wasn't reflected in the patents, and therefore couldn't be replicated by anyone but him to kind of protect his secret. However, if you really wanted to see his invention come to fruition, he should have put everything in the patents and held nothing back, because that would be the only thing that would keep his invention safe. You know, if he's the only one with the secret sauce, if something happens to him, then the sauce is lost, you know, it's gone. I don't think that was the case. If he was thinking clearly and rationally, he would have known that if he got a patent on his secret sauce, that would be the best way to not only protect it, but to make sure that it got to market. And unfortunately, that just never happened. Also recently, there was a claim from Elon Musk that he had a working prototype of a water-powered car that ran very similar to the ways that Stanley's was described. However, Elon said that the government confiscated it from him and asked him not to work on water-powered vehicles. There's no way to know if this is true unless Musk has proof of this, and as far as I know, he hasn't released any of this evidence or any proof that he had built a functioning water-powered vehicle. But according to him, the government wasn't interested at those coming to market at this time. They much prefer us sticking with the oil and gas powered cars for now, which I can kind of see that side of things, because the government and the big oil are pretty combined. Not to get too into the weeds or too conspiratorial about it, but we just know that's true. Right now the world runs on oil, more or less, for better or for worse. And there's a lot of parties with a lot of interest in keeping things that way. Well, it's not out of the realm of possibility without really hardcore evidence or proof. I'm just gonna throw that in the unlikely until proven true category. If one day we find out that it is true and Stanley Meyer's car did work, or that other people have built water-powered cars and they've had it shut down by the government or big oil or assassinations, that is really unfortunate. I think that, well, a water-powered car could do a lot of good for the environment. I think at the same time, it wouldn't necessarily be as great of a thing as it seems on the surface. There's tons of places, many places in the US and worldwide, that are facing water shortages and droughts and have water insecurity, just like there's many places with energy insecurity. And while it would be good to have more options, you know, places with an abundance of water could run water-powered cars instead of electric-powered cars, and, you know, places where the grid can't handle electric-powered cars right now could run water-powered cars instead, and more options would be good. But I don't think the solution is just one or just the other. It is unfortunate that we don't have that option at our disposal. So those are the facts. Those are everything I could find in my research. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, all my sources will be linked down in the description. Thanks for watching, and stay crispy. I'm doing business.